What's good, YouTube, man? Today's a day, man. One Piece 1163 just dropped. Early spoilers. Officials ain't out. So you ain't one to get into the spoilers for the official actual release. This ain't for you. I appreciate it. Give me that like, comment, subscribe. But yeah, man, let's get right up into it, man. This was a highly anticipated chapter because we pretty much knew we were gonna get to the battle between Emu, Rocks, Roger, Garp, Kaido, Whitebeard, Big Mom, and there's just so many fucking names, man. But this chapter was pretty much just all gas. Like all narratively, it probably wasn't too much going on. There was little subtle stuff here and there. Um, but when the early like just like text only leaks came out for this chapter, people were just like overreacting. I feel like, and then sometimes like a lot of times like the translation is a little bit off, and the translation might change a little bit from after what we have now, right? But the early translation from the early text leaks was like it basically had it like portraying that Garp was like ignorant, but a fodder marine knew something that Garp didn't. But that got cleared up. Go and get right up into it, man. So basically, this whole chapter is just showing Emu rampaging and then everybody reacting to it before they initially, come to battle with him. And the chapter kind of flows by super quickly. I don't know if it was maybe just me, just because like there wasn't that much dialogue, so the action that happened. So, but before we get into the Emu stuff, we gotta address it, man. We got to find out who the predecessor was for Captain Kidd's fruit. It was Captain John, John. And I am willing to say that anybody who gets this fruit is just destined to be a fraud. You know, it's just like Captain John was pretty lackluster, and so is Kidd. Don't really got much to say about it, man. It sucks. But if you're a Kidd fan out there, man, my boy's fruit is not a good luck charm. If the Nika fruit is something good, well, whatever the fucking magnet fruit is, that shit ain't good. But yeah, man. So we get back into it, and this is when I point to it at the very beginning. One of the like Marines are sitting there saying, "Hey, Saturn, what are you doing? Saturn, what is the transformation?" And I think a lot of people forget about it that Saturn is the one that showed up on scene, but Emu possessed him to fight through him, and that's the thing that's like gonna throw off like power scalers and just like people that just like have this like narrative, like whatever like narrative they have in their head about, or agenda I should say, agenda they have in their head is like, okay, Emu's this strong or Saturn's this strong or something like that, right? This is Emu fighting through Saturn, but we don't know how much of his power is coming through Saturn. Is it Emu able to just basically just go all 100% of his power through? Because we do get to see a Conqueror's Haki feat, and I'm willing to bet he's not using Saturn's Conqueror's Haki, right? He's using his own Conqueror's Haki. It's kind of like how Joy Boy put his Haki inside the robot, and then the robot eventually, use his Haki to blow the Gorosei back to Mary Joie and whatnot. But we have these Marines, and they're getting attacked by Emu because Emu's thing is like, yo, everybody on this island, if I lay eyes on you, yeah, getting got. No ifs, ands, but about it. It don't matter if you're a Marine or pirate, yeah, getting got. So, and we already know what he did with the Davy Clan. The remaining members of the Davy Clan, he Domi reversed them, and yeah, they ain't doing so hot. But so we get to see Garp just still like like what the fuck is this? What is this? What is this rat? Like what is this insect? You know what I'm saying? Like what is this creature? Why is he attacking everybody? Right? And Garp like it's funny because like it's showing all of the top names getting ready to go to the battle with Emu, and it's funny because it shows you Garp, and it's like Garp's kind of like, or they're like questioning Garp like, who are you about to go to battle with? Like, who you gonna attack? Because they're thinking, like, surely you gonna attack, Roger or Rocks or somebody, right? Yeah, but nah. Garp got his eyes on the biggest fish there, and that's what. And it's funny because in the panel, it literally tells you that it's just like when they're all getting ready to line up their attacks, Garp's like, "Nah, move out the way, Roger. This is my prey. You know what I'm saying? This is my fish. You know what I'm saying? Because he sees the emu. First of all, he sees the emus attacking Marines, right? So obviously it's no go, right? But then second, he sees like how strong emu is, and he wants to go at him, right? But we get the all out cover spread of the all of the members attacking emu, and it basically does nothing, but it does something. So this is where people have complaints with emu's characters. Like, they're gonna question, how do you beat a character like this, right? Because you have the people that are arguably, or well, definitively are the top of their verse for that era, all attacking at once, and they essentially disintegrate most of Mimu's body slash Saturn's body, but then he just recovers, right? And it just leaves you to wonder, like, okay, well, how do you handle with that, right? But I feel like that's like there's more to it, right? And we'll learn more to it. Um, but yeah, we get to see that, and we get to see before the fall of the fighting starts, we get to see a cool little interaction with Rox Emu, and it's hilarious because Rox refers to him as the Rat King, and I just think it's funny. And I'm really curious to see, will the silhouette ever change? Like, because like the way forever like Oda usually works with things is like he uses these silhouette type characters like only like in passing, right? He doesn't really have them interact like a lot on screen and have them remain a silhouette, right? So, but with Emu, he has remained like a silhouette shadow type character, right? And it's just really like, will there be like more of a reveal to their character design? And it's like, I don't know, it's just weird. And maybe it's a little bit different because while they're like possessing somebody, obviously it is not physically like there, so their body can't physically be shown. So it could be like something like that, like the aura just has like this shadowy figure on it. That they could be going that way as well. But they get to talking, and if you remember at the very beginning of the Rocks flashback, it tells you about how Rocks was the rookie. He invaded Marijoa, got to the Room of Flowers, and he basically made a promise to Emu saying, "Hey, come back. I'm gonna take you off that throne." You know what I'm saying? Because Emu is considered, he sits on that throne at the top of the world, even though nobody actually supposed to know that, but he does. But Rocks is like, "Hey, promise is a promise. I plan on carrying that out." And Emu also is like asking, he mistake. This is kind of weird. Like, I don't know if this is a translation error or if Emu is really just like this like oblivious. I don't know. I want to say oblivious because you see what he feels like with Nika, right? Feels like Joy Boy is back because he has the power, like emanates like hockey from the robot, right? He thinks Joy Boy is there. So maybe he sees Rocks and he knows he's a member of the Davy Jones clan. So he mistakes Rocks as Davy Jones, and Rocks like, "Nah, sorry, mate, I ain't never met that guy." And but it's cool because you get to see a little bit more. There was more dialogue from Emu, but it still was like Emu's like speaks kind of weird, kind of speaks in like third person a little bit because they were referring to as like gonna eradicate you from Moo's world. You know what I'm saying? But then Rox is like, "This ain't your world." So Rox is thinking Moo is you, right? Because that's what he assumes. But Emu is saying Moo's world, so it's like in the third person sense. So it leaves a little bit weird because maybe the translation is off, but who knows? I do remember the text translation saying similar thing, so it might just actually be the character that speaks weird. It wouldn't be the first character that speaks weird in One Piece or anime in general. But yeah, man. So we get to the bad part of the chapter, man. A lot of people are gonna get sad about. I can't cover that yet. Let's hit the talking point that on the community, right? the community to pre-spoilers, and I alluded to it earlier on about how random Marine fodder knew something that Garp potentially didn't. And this is the problem with when you pay attention to the community in like especially like in spoilers and shit like that, right? Is people start making assumptions based off stuff they see, but it's more like a scarce view, right? And the thing I'm alluding to is like when the text scans came text spoilers came out, it was basically saying like Garp was getting ready to go attack Emu, and the Marines like, no, Garp, you can't do it. That's the highest authority in the government, blah blah blah. And everybody just took that and ran with it and was like, how did this random fodder know that Emu or know about Emu, but Garp doesn't? He's a fraud, or he's just this is just bad writing, you know what I'm saying? But it's just like, bro, they seen Saturn pull up. Yeah, Saturn got possessed, but they think it's like a transformation from Saturn. So they still think it's Saturn, and Saturn is a Gorosei, who is when they were introduced, they were told you is this is the highest authority of the world government. It's the Gorosei. So it goes hand in hand, even though the translations are different when it comes out. When it came out, it makes it clear to say, like, hey, you can't do that. That's one of the highest authorities in the world, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? That's Saint Saturn, you know? They make that clear multiple times. But it's just like man, bro, community does this so much. And it's like that with anything, right? Anything, especially in this day and age in social media, like people will just always just see something and they make a judgment on it, they run with it, and there's not much thought process behind it. But yeah, man, I just want to get that off my chest, man. Just always give it a second, wait, and see how it actually is, right? Kind of judge it and not just go at the surface level or just like poor translations, stuff like that. And sometimes poor translation, you can't really complain. You can't take the blame for it because I mean you ain't speaking Japanese, so it's like you ain't reading the raws yourself. So if somebody that's translating it that's supposed to be credible fucks it up, it's not your fault. But now, fortunately, we gotta get to the end of the chapter. So after all of the, you know, Rocks, Roger, Garp, Kaido, Whitebeard, and Big Mom all in their attack on Emu, I said Emu just like regenerates, and then you see Rocks and Rocks still fighting with them. And what happens is Emu stabs Rocks twice, and then they get to having this little dialogue. And it seems like Emu was like spying and trying to and found out where Rocks' wife and child were. He's like, hey, at the end of the woods, blah blah blah. And Rocks is like, nah, you ain't finna be doing none of that. And then Emu with one of the coldest motherfucking lines, bro. It ain't and I actually in these translations, it isn't as cold, basically, as like the text I believe were. But essentially, Emu was like hearing Rock saying, no, you better not touch my family, basically, right? And Emu, with two of his like tentacle like things, like no hentai paws type shit, you know what I'm saying? Got two of them in Rocks, like pierced through Rocks, and there he's like, Rocks is talking that shit, say, hey bro, you ain't gonna touch my family. Emu was like, alright fam, I got you. I ain't gonna touch your family. But you gonna touch your family. You gonna kill your wife and son. And Rocks is like, no, what you mean? Bro, that sound crazy. And next thing you know, don't be reverse. And then it's chapter end, and you see Rocks start to form like the teeth, like you know you see with Dorian Broggy, like the demon teeth type of deal. And essentially, it's showing you that Rocks is getting Domi reversed. Tragic, because now this sets up the Roger and Garp versus Rocks that we get in history books. But, you know, and I've seen other people have complaints about this, right? There's a side of the fence of like, oh, well, if Emu can just Domi reverse anybody, how do you beat that, right? And then there's like people just automatically jump to the head canon of like, oh, well, I bet you Domiverse is gonna work on everybody except Luffy. And it's like, oh, that's just like major setup plot armor, just being able to be immune to something like that. Where somebody like a top one or top two in the verse being Rocks couldn't even be immune to it. And people were just complaining about that. My thoughts on it is, can it potentially be bad if Luffy is the only one that's irresistible to it because of the Nika fruit? Sure, yes, 100% agree. Do I think it'll be like that? No, because there's the two times we've seen somebody Domiverse. There's been more Domiverses. Like the rest of the David King got Domiverse. So, but the two times we've seen like characters of like at least like fighting power in Domiverse is Dory and Broggy, and those they were held like kind of held down and forced to be put in like a ritual circle, right? And they had to like stand in it, and then they went through it. Now, who's to say like I couldn't really tell if they were like if they could have just jumped out of the ritual, they would have been safe, right? But and then we see the one with Rocks. He's literally connected to Emu, like he's right there. So it's kind of like, what do you like? You can't really do anything, right? And at that point, and also Rocks is like tired. You could also argue about the fatigue factor, and you just like I said, we just don't know too much about it, and that is the downside about it. Downside of like when you see these like OP things happen, you don't really know everything. You kind of make judgments. It's kind of like you start to look at like the picture of how it affects the story long term. It's like, oh man, this guy looks OP. Like it looks impossible to beat him, right? But then later on, shit comes out, and there's this weakness or that weakness, et cetera, et cetera. You know what I'm saying? One of the biggest things, like fucking early anime for people, was the Sharingan. It's like you see Itachi manhandle Kakashi, and you like, damn, how you beat that? I was like, Kakashi got a Sharingan, and he just got fucked up by Itachi just from a Genjutsu. But there's a lot there. I have faith that there's going to be a lot like a logical reason or way to not get Domi reversed, and yeah. But I do fear we will see a Straw Hat get Domi reversed. Now, whether or not they stay Domi reversed, that's another question. What I believe Domi reverse is I believe like when you've seen it with Dory and Broggy, Domi reverse they basically got pulled down and then a new version got sent up. So I'm thinking they're literally swapping with their Hell counterpart, and I believe that they're Oda's flirting with the fact that there's two of you, and I've seen this. You've seen these in other forms of media, where there's a an upside you and a downside you type of deal. So basically, they just swap the two, and that's why it's Domi reverse. Could be totally wrong, but that's just something I just like randomly thought about. It was like, hey, this is the normal human appearance, right? And I'll switch you with your devil version. And now the human side's underneath where hell is, or whatever you consider that, and the devil side is on top of the human world. Could be like that, but yeah, man, chapter was really good. Super short in my opinion, but I think it was because of the Captain John stuff. I wasn't really too interested in it. Cool little super subtle hint. You get to see where Shanks is basically going to end up in the treasure box, because as the treasure gets blown away and knocked all over the place because John John's with the magnet and all this ruckus and stuff going on, you see Shanks on the ground and the treasure box is like laying open and Shanks is just looking at it. So leads to show you that, hey, this is how Shanks ends up in the box, and this is like goes to show you sometimes like you just gotta look, right? Sometimes the stories, I mean, later in one of the later episode chapters, it might actually show you him in the box again, like just to reiterate it. But if they don't, I want to be mad because I'm like, okay, cool, I know what they did, right? I know I know he got in the box because it was right there in front of him, open. But yeah, man. All in all, man, good chapter, man. Y'all let me know let me know if y'all like the video, man. Comment down and tell me what you thought about the chapter, if you've read it already, or if you plan on waiting for the official and you kind of just like listening to people talk about it, or just whatever the case. But as always, man, like, comment, subscribe. Peace.